Now, it's interesting too, how they're going after the children's minds, or really reducing the children's minds, because if you have any ability, young men especially, they don't want young men to become leaders. All down through history, those who stood up and fought against this banking system, which they call progress, by the way. The banks finance all progress and industry and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's always the males who tend to stand up and say, we don't want our way of life changed and destroyed. It doesn't matter if it's Africa or even old Scotland or at one time or anywhere else. It's the males who stand up. So they've always been a problem. And what you find with males who have leadership abilities is even in school, they tend to do a lot of asking of questions, and awkward questions too, because they'll ask outside the box. Teachers like children who are inside the box and who ask the expected questions. But leaders have the ability to think outside the box. That's why they're called leaders. So what you do is make sure you don't have leaders, and then you've got a nice docile society if you can take care of those ones who have leadership qualities. Now, this site here is about ADHD, and it's a clinical practice guidelines for pediatrics, and it's from the CBC News Canada. So it's 4-year-olds. Now, 4-year-olds showing debilitating signs of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder should be evaluated by doctors, revised guidelines say. 4-year-olds are after now. Previously, recommendations in diagnosing and management of ADHD, which all started with inoculations, by the way, because I went through, I can remember it all. And now it's a science, and etc. It's better. It's more now because it's better to detect them. We didn't have this at school when I was a wee. It didn't happen. ADHD started with children aged 6 to 12 since 2001, emerging evidence pointing to expanding the age range to include preschool-aged children and adolescents, the American Academy of Pediatrics said. The revised guidelines suggest doctors first prescribe behavior therapy for preschoolers, and that methylphenidate or Ritalin may be prescribed if that does not significantly improve, and there is moderate to severe continuing disturbance in the child's function, the group's 14-member committee said. That's a lot of power, isn't it? 14-member committee, and you end up drugging an awful lot of children across, the country. Behavior therapy includes training parents and teachers on techniques to help children manage their anger, such as using positive reinforcement and punishing when a child fails to meet goals. Well, maybe the child isn't interested in a social, political agenda, and that's what the goals happen to be, training everyone to be standardized and the same, giving them boring nonsense and a lot of pablum, like Mark Twain talked about, and to be good model citizens and be well behaved in a situation where you shouldn't be well behaved. Think about it. A student at the Center for Attention and Related Disorders camp in New Fairfield, Connecticut, that provides structure for children who suffer from attention deficit hyperactivity. New guidelines say the diagnosis should be considered in children as young as 4. So anyway, it goes on and on and on. It says it's the most common neurobehavioral disorder in children, occurring in about 8% of children and youth, according to the report. That's pretty high. To be diagnosed with ADHD, a child must show key symptoms in multiple environments, such as home, at school, and in relationships with their peers that attract over time and persist. For elementary school children and adolescents, the group recommends both approved medications and behavior therapy. Remember too, H.G. Wells talked about this back in the 1920s when he worked at the Fabian Society, and he said they would use all these sciences on the youth, of course, to make sure that they wouldn't have problems down the road with people who would be against their particular system. Many others spoke about the same thing too. Bertrand Russell said it as well. He said those children who show leadership qualities, actually, and intelligence, who could understand and think beyond their schoolmates, would be brought in through scholarships. It says if they wouldn't join the system and leave their family and class system behind them, it says they would have to be, he's talking about physically eliminated, because they would be opposing leaders who with a good functioning brain. Well, they're making sure that won't happen in the future. What they want is those who will join the crowd mentality and go and protest when they're told to protest, even if they're being usurped by another organization at the top, run by the same people who run both sides.